Hey everybody, we're going to do a drawing exercise using the proportions that you created last week with your child with each head 1 5/8. So find that drawing because we're going to use that as our body proportion template, and we're going to turn that figure into this little girl. We'll do her today with our drawing pencils, and then tomorrow we're going to do her in full color using markers and colored pencils. So to get started, I've got my template here. I've grabbed a light box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace his figure so that I can get started. I actually just barely got started on this a minute ago, and I decided I wanted my light box, so I started over. I'm going to just lightly draw in the body right here. And here's my reference photo of my girl. She's just standing there. This pose that we created earlier is going to be perfect. The only thing is we're going to have to change the arms so that they go inwards to look more like her, but everything else I think is going to be just fine. We're going to have fur covering the legs, so you're not going to see that. But down here, we will see the legs below her furry skirt. So I'll go ahead and get those contours in just like they are. And she's going to be wearing some little boots. And I can just start to lightly pencil in those little boots, which we will talk about in just a second. Okay. And because I've got a nice reference photo, I'm able to get some details in here as I'm going along. Okay, let's perfect this. Are you ready? Let me see. I'm going to mark where the elbows are, and I'm going to turn my light box off because I think that's just going to make it harder for everybody to see. Okay, what I need to do is just bend the arms inward. So instead of having the wrist about here, we're going to bend that arm inwards. We're going to bend that arm inwards. And good news, she's wearing this big bulky jacket, so we don't have to worry too much about the actual shape of the arms because we're just going to outline it. So speaking of outlining it, I traced her head shape. That cannot deviate from our 0 to 1 size. But what is going to happen now is I'm going to go away from her body because this is a chunky fur coat. So let me go ahead and make it look like it's a little bit chunky on her. And I'm going to go ahead and just start working my way around, trying to get all these details in place. You don't have to worry too much about like the creases and the wrinkles yet, but we will in a minute. So make sure that you've got this reference photo handy so that you can look really closely at it. I will say this reference photo, I don't know how it's happening, but I had a whole batch of photos that got mirrored. So if you're looking at the picture of her online, I'm pretty sure it's flipped. So you may see me placing shadows and placing highlights on the other side compared to yours. So don't get confused. I want you guys to be drawing from a reference photo. I'm doing these demos and I'm giving you my finished drawings in the assignments so that you can see it. But I don't want you to be drawing from my drawings. Does that make sense? Use my drawings to help you figure out how to do things and follow along as I'm doing this. But the best thing for you to be looking at as you're doing these drawings is the actual original photo of the actual person. We want a human child here. That's really the way you're going to get better at drawing. Okay, so I'm not going to worry too much about details yet. I just want to kind of figure out where her skirt goes. I can see there's a little belt right here. She's got hands. She's got a whole heck of a lot of fingers. We'll talk about that in a second. Let me see if I can get this big blue skirt to poof out. And that's going to come down to maybe here, maybe there, something like that. And then we've got this feathery fringy skirt, which on first glance is probably the part you're most nervous about. At least that has been my experience in the classroom. People are like, oh my gosh, how am I going to draw these feathery things? Guess what, guys? It's going to turn out to be maybe the easiest part of the drawing. So we'll get to that in no time at all here. Okay, what else do I want to do? Let me put in very lightly eye level for her, brow, nose, and mouth, following our same proportions we talked about last week, where we put the eyes a little bit low. We put the brow a bit above that, halfway from the brow to the chin, tells you exactly where we want to put the nose. I wish I had a bigger printout of her so I could see her face a little bit better for this. The ears are bigger than people think. The ears go all the way from the brow down to the nose. And then she's got her hairline right here. And she's got some nice volume on her hair. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Looks like it's parted about here. And then she's got these big fluffy buns that are going to be really fun to draw. Okay, we're off to a pretty good start here. Let's talk about these hands. If you want to totally simplify the hands, I am fine with that. And you may see in the assignments that I've got a couple where I've really simplified the hands. I'm gonna do it with a medium amount of detail here. I'm gonna see if I can get that thumb, and I'm gonna see if I can get the rest of her hand. So I always block it out first as a general geometric shape, and then I can start to separate that. Like here's these two fingers, and then we've got 1 and 2. So maybe something like that, okay? Think about it first in terms of like a gigantic geometric shape that kind of outlines everything you see, and then within that you can break it down a little smaller. Now for this one, here's what I mean by simplifying. If you just wanted to maybe make it look like her fist is underneath her other hand and just do this all sort of skin color, no problem, guys. That's no problem at all. I mean, maybe I'll do that just in the interest of time. My fear when I start fussing around with too much fingers and things is, one, it can really take a long time. I don't want you guys to get burned out trying to draw perfect little fingers when really the illustration is more about, for our purposes, the illustration is about the clothes. And then secondly, we don't want to distract people from the clothes. If the hands look overworked, that's all people are going to notice. Okay, I think we're ready now to start putting in some more details. So let's see. I think I'm just going to take sections of this and work through those. We can start with the blue fur skirt, I think would be fine to start with. You could really start anywhere. Maybe I'll start with the blue fur. Okay, so here we go. What I'm going to do for this blue fur, we really haven't drawn fur yet. For this blue fur, and by the way, I don't need him underneath me anymore, so let me get him out of my way. Let me get a nice clean work surface. I am drawing on marker paper because I just happen to really like the smooth surface texture, but many people would be doing this on drawing paper. Okay. Okay, so for this skirt, I'm going to rough in what I see. So I can tell from about where her hands are, we can see that there's a fold of the skirt here. We can see that this part and then that part kind of make a shape down here at the bottom of that blue fur skirt. And now what I want to do is actually start filling it in with some value. Okay, we're going to start to get some darkness in here. When you shade this in, what I recommend you do is use pencil strokes that will communicate the texture of the thing. In this case, it's kind of like longer fur. So I'm going to do longer strokes. And with fur, if you look closely at it, you can see that it's almost like these fur sections, they sort of go almost in rows. So I can kind of work my way out there and work my way out there. And I'm still using an HB, but I'm about to put this away in favor of my 2B. So I'm just coming out from under her sleeve. We'll put the jacket on top of that in a minute. You know, you could start really anywhere you wanted in this drawing. It's just kind of, I sort of felt like drawing the blue fur, so that's what I'm going to do first. But if you're excited to draw the hair or the face, you know, absolutely, you can go for it. Okay, what I'm going to do now, actually, let me just do what I did with the HB throughout. This is really the darkest area right there. So that's going to get pretty dark. And this whole side of the skirt is darker than the other. But remember, guys, I'm going to look when you submit this. I do want to see that you're using the reference photo. So be careful if my version is mirrored. You want to stay consistent with whatever reference photo you're looking at. Okay. Okay. And then this guy, we can put a little bit of fur on here too. And then underneath her fingers is a little bit darker. Okay, now let's switch pencils. I need something a little bit softer so I can get more shadow and I can get more detail. Okay, so sharpen it up, keep your pencils nice and sharp, and we'll come in and I'm just gonna really pop those shadows. Pop them, make them dark, make them really stand out. Okay, so just get a little bit extra shading in a few spots. Okay, what I wanna do now is turn my pencil the other way. Okay, so now it's like I'm writing a letter and I'm going to work on my silhouette. The silhouette, as I've said before, it does so much of the heavy lifting for us. Like if we get a good silhouette, that's going to help us understand what we're looking at. I'm going to come down the hem part. This part right here, this has basically kind of like an edge, so I'm going to pop a few harder lines right there so that we can feel like there's fur texture right there, and we can kind of start to see, well, how long and shaggy is this fur? That's what the silhouette's telling us, is more about this actual texture. Okay, I'm gonna come in now with my pencil. I'm gonna keep sharpening it. You guys will notice as I draw, because I really need this pencil to stay sharp, I don't even think about it as I'm doing it, but I'm constantly rotating. I'm constantly rotating. And when I rotate, what that does is it keeps a sharper part of the pencil against the paper. And then when that starts to dull, I twist it. And I'm doing that pretty much constantly. Okay, a couple more little hairlines like that, a little bit, and maybe we're done with that, at least for now. Okay, I always come back at the end and I'm like, adding things, adding things. Okay, let's come down and let's deal with these furry feathers, okay? So what I want to do for these is, again, I want to communicate what they are. And they're these long, shaggy, I don't even know what these are called. I feel like I do know, it's not coming to me, and it's not even near the front of my brain, so don't think I'm gonna remember. Let me know, guys. Put it in when you submit this, be like, oh, those are such and such. It's funny, now I'm just really thinking, like, what are those? Okay, so again, I'm trying to get shadows, okay? And the way I do it is by using pencil strokes that communicate the texture, okay? I could do any kind of shading here. Like, why not use the opportunity to start to communicate what this is with my pencil strokes? So again, let's break it down. When you see this, you can see it's darker right here, it's a little darker right here, and then there's some little pockets of darkness throughout. So I'm still using my 2B. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna press a little harder right up under there to get some of those darker spots. There's a little bit here I'm gonna try to get. Okay, so that wasn't too bad, right? I'm gonna erase away this line that I drew. I don't need that anymore. Okay, I probably should have erased that a minute ago. Let me blend it back together. Okay, and now we can have, if you want, a couple of little flyaways, and let's get this pattern in there. When we look closely at this, what we're seeing, look especially right here, do you see it? They make rows. That's why this stuff is so recognizable. They make little rows like this. And I'm realizing I'm already at 12 minutes, so I think I'm gonna break this into 2 videos. So let me get the fur here, and then I'll move into another video. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw these little rows, but they need to be imperfect, okay? Perfectly imperfect. So what I'm doing, I'm gonna zoom in real close. I'm going to just do little scratchy lines. Can you see it? And let them sort of stop and start, but let them overall follow along in a row. And just work your way along just like that. Okay, and it's going to start to give us the vibe of that textured, furry, fringy. Now you'll see some of them, maybe we want to just follow one all the way down. We could follow this one all the way down. And then other ones you can sort of make your rows going along. Be careful that this isn't too perfect, okay? You kind of want tight little scribbles. When in doubt, just look at the reference photo, see what you see, and try not to think of it as a thing. Try to think of it as, okay, is it light, is it dark? And what shape is it? What texture is it creating? And we can start filling in all these little lines. I'm going to get a little bit more here. Work my way along. But once you kind of get like a system down for this, you can just sort of spot that in. Even if it's not exactly like the reference photo, it's still going to give us the effect we need. Really, with fashion illustration, it's okay if it's not exactly like what you're seeing, as long as it makes us understand what's the fabric, how does it hang, what does it feel like, what's the hand or the drape of that fabric. And that's why we really want to practice drawing all these different textures, and why for our projects we're going to have the chunky knit, and we're going to have, as we move forward into our women's collection, we'll have other requirements like sheer fabric and all sorts of things to really help us practice different textures and just figure out what they look like. Okay, so I think in the video, my hard pencil lines are looking much more dark than they are on my paper, which is interesting. So I'm going to blend those slightly as I'm looking at the camera just to see. I don't want them to be quite as harsh as they look there. Okay, now we need to talk about how we're going to get these legs to stick out from under this furry fringy. So I'm going to pause this video and I will, oops, I missed an area up here. And I'll be back in the next part.